The technology revolution is here, and the need to be digitally connected is a growing obsession in cultures around the world. The necessity of online interaction is changing the global learning community, and the effects of technology pervade our educational systems. With the increasing demand for technology integration and use in the classroom, educators and administrators have adopted the initiative of Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD. Some teachers rave about educational technology and suggest that it's impossible to run a modern-day classroom without it. Others have suggested that it's a fad or a trendy add-on that does little to change the fundamental basics of education. Some even think that it's a distraction prone to waste time and money. But current research has estimated that 92% of American high school students have their own wireless mobile device, and more than 60% of these students regularly bring their mobile phones to school. According to a survey in May of 2013, 86% of teachers think that it is important or absolutely essential to use technology in the classroom. 96% of teachers think that technology increases student engagement and learning. 89% of teachers think technology improves student outcomes, and 92% of teachers would like to use even more technology in the classroom than they already do. But only 14% of teachers use digital curriculum weekly, and 19% of teachers use subject-specific content tools weekly, and only 11% of teachers are implementing a one-on-one or BYOD programs. According to a survey about social media in schools in July of 2013, 96% of students with internet access report using social media. 59% of students who use social networking talk about educational topics online. 59% of schools say the students use social networking for educational purposes. 35% of schools have student and/or instructor run blogs, and 46% of schools have students participate in online pen pal or similar international programs. BYOD implementation supports the use of future technology and allows for students and teachers to take advantage of connectivity in the classroom. BYOD supports continuity through the student's educational career, and according to Young and Laxman in 2014, students were found to take ownership of and were accountable for their own learning when integrating mobile devices into their lessons. However, is BYOD the answer to technology integration? Gary Stager in 2012 described that BYOD programs as the worst idea of the 21st century, predicting that such plans will institutionalize inequities of access to technology in schools. Data and research point to three separate factors and issues when considering BYOD: classroom impact, student perceptions, and information technology implementation and support. All three should be collectively studied in order to determine the benefits of BYOD usage in an educational institution. However, there is a tremendous lack of research and data outlining information regarding the benefits from the student perspective. When the value of BYOD is weighed against the challenge of integrating new technologies, are the benefits to student learning worth the cost of instituting BYOD? Let's go over some terminology from the study. BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. It's an initiative that allows schools to provide Wi-Fi access to students in all classrooms in order to allow constant connectivity with the internet from their personal computers, smartphones, or other devices for school purposes. The internet is the World Wide Web. It's a global network connecting millions of computers. More than 190 countries are linked to exchange data, news, and opinions. Connectivity. It's a state or extent of being connected to the internet or being online. IT is short for information technology, and it's a general term that covers all forms of technology used to create, store, exchange, support, and use digital information in various forms. Infrastructure. The basic physical and organizational structures, equipment, and facilities needed for the operation of a computer network in a building. Because of the paradigm shift happening in education due to the increasing need for technology integration, BYOD became a rapidly adopted concept that has been absorbed into the classroom of many schools locally and globally. But relatively few people foresaw the extent to which personal devices would become involved in education. The purpose of this study is to identify deficiencies in research when analyzing data surrounding the school district's BYOD policies, and to determine the value of BYOD in student learning when considering the challenges faced in the classroom and by the IT support staff and student perceptions. Numerous studies and articles indicate challenges created by BYOD in classroom and IT support. However, very little data exists that examines student and/or community perceptions. A variety of key factors are necessary to implementing active BYOD in a school, including staff buy-in, staff development, training, classroom implementations, student monitoring and effectiveness, and the cost of bandwidth. In a casual poll of students, most indicated that they used their personal device in the classroom and it did not enhance their lessons. Most indicated that they used their devices for Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, listening to music, or other social media applications. Clearly, a district's visions of BYOD is not reflected in the students' actual habits. As Simmons in 2014 indicated, like all successful strategies, smooth implementation begins with a shared vision between key stakeholders. In other words, all stakeholders in a school, including the district IT staff, faculty, students, and parents, must share an understanding and vision of BYOD before it can become an effective tool for student learning and outweigh the cost and time of implementation. So let's hear from a few of the stakeholders in College Station ISD to help paint a clearer picture of what BYOD looks like in its uses and perceptions.
Using the phone in the classroom is really helpful for being able to access documents or just assignments, things to study for that are for other classes when I'm just sitting there and I don't have anything else to do. If we have some downtime, I can try to get ahead with the Wi-Fi. And the flip side to that is also the distractions. I mean, obviously, if you have your phone and Wi-Fi out, you can do anything that's the internet allows. So there's music, videos, but it's really just trying to balance using your time efficiently versus having fun and just leisure time.
I usually use my device to browse the internet or check social networks. Occasionally I use it to check on information that my teachers have given to me, follow up. Sometimes they say something interesting and I want to learn more about that, so I pull it up on my phone.
I typically use my phone for the social media site known as Reddit. Using Reddit, I look at pictures or discussions of topics, whether very serious about political events or about whether Superman would beat Batman. It's just a lot of random stuff, and you can do a lot of things on Reddit, and I usually do that through my app on Reddit.
I'm looking up notes for class if I missed it, listening to music on SoundCloud, which is just a music app, or YouTube, or I am just looking up stuff on Facebook.
I'll use it in class because I'll use it for Quizlets, which helps me study for different tests and quizzes. We use it actually to take quizzes for reviews the day before. I'll go on TeamViewer and work on tech projects. I also go on Google Docs, which allows me to get started on my essays or outlines beforehand. And that's just a few of the things I do.
Well, one of the main things that I work on is I use it specifically Google Drive. I use it to kind of consolidate all my papers and stuff electronically over the cloud, so I can work on them in any class at any time, and no matter what, and they're all just right there. Use Kik, which is kind of instant messenger. YouTube a lot of times. Just listen to music, watch videos.
I mostly use it for checking my email during class and also looking up facts. If the teacher asks a question and I don't know, then I can look up answers, or if they say something and I'm not quite sure if I agree with that, I can look up facts that either support the teacher or refute them. It's how I stay connected with my friends. It keeps me busy and not talking to the people around me during class. Instead, if I need something from them or need to let them know something, I can just send them a quick message instead of turning to them and making noise.
Most of the time, probably checking social media or playing games on my phone. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
When I'm connected to the school Wi-Fi, it's either because I'm finished with all of my work or because there's an activity that requires our cell phone. So most of the time I usually go onto social media or go onto YouTube to listen to music after I finished my work. The social media that I use the most while connected to the school Wi-Fi has definitely got to be Facebook. Occasionally I also get on Snapchat in order to talk to different friends.
The primary thing I use my phone for is watching TED Talks and tech deals online during science class or messaging friends.
Primarily throughout the day, I tend to use my phone for messaging friends or looking things up on the internet that I might not know about or things that I'm interested about. And I also tend to use social media when I'm bored or there's nothing to do in class.
What I see people using their phones for mostly, I would say is social media for sure, like Snapchat, Facebook, and YouTube videos, lots of people browsing Reddit, basically literally anything besides schoolwork.
See other people use their phones mainly for texting other people, their friends or whatever. I've also see them like getting videos on YouTube or other stuff about like trailers or funny stuff just to show each other.
I see other people using Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, basically any social site on their phones. They watch a lot of Netflix, which isn't accessible through the Wi-Fi here, but they use data.
I see other people watching YouTube videos or just reading articles on their phones during class and in the hallways.
Mainly to like watch YouTube videos or try to get in contact with some of their friends through Facebook or other social media. That or they just want to waste some time by browsing random websites or Amazon shopping.
Fun uses for me in the classroom is really more individualistic. It's like listening to music or listening through like study guides, reading online notes for other classes, rather than paying attention to that class per se. But that's, I guess, would be my version of fun.
Occasionally, my teachers will pull up something that we have to use our phones for or any internet-connected device. Not very often, but when they do, it is a lot more engaging than normal.
We have played quizzes using the phone using Kahoot, which is a website where like a teacher can make their own quiz and then they put it up on the smartboard and then everyone can log in on it by going to the website and entering in a PIN code, and they can all like individually put their answers in on their phone. And if they don't have a phone, they can use a computer too.
We played a Kahoot game in Mr. Taylor's class and a couple other classes I've done. Basically, the teacher pulled up a thing on the board and we all connected to it and played on our phones, and the scoring got put on the main board.
Basically, we've done reviews in class where we on the smartboard there is a question with 4 choices, and then you choose what choice on your phone, and it racks up points, and you can have a prize at the end of class, and it helps with reviewing.
Yeah, specifically Kahoot is really nice. It's a kind of a quizzing thing that the class can log on to at one time and kind of compete while they're taking the test.
I guess probably quizzing. The teacher will put up quiz questions on the board and I can send in my answers through my phone and have them graded remotely.
We have Kahoot, and we use that to go through test questions really quick, and the teacher can, on the computer, they can use it and they can see which questions that the students missed.
There were a couple of lessons that in classes where I had to use my phone for Kahoot, which is basically a quiz where everyone connects using their own cell phone and you compete against other students in order to see who can get the most answers right.
I've used it for a Kahoot. Those are very fun, and other such online quiz services that my teachers use.
In my Latin class, we use Quizlet as a device for our flashcards to learn about our vocabulary quizzes. That way we're able to learn them easier, because Quizlet tends to do a learning activity where you have to use the device many times to learn the word. So that's something we use it for, engaging in class.
I think in the classroom, I feel like it's more of a distraction, because if these tools and study guides, assignments, things are online for the class, I'm less incentivized to actually pay attention in class, because I feel I do a better job of learning by teaching myself and going through the materials and spending time online, using all the resources available, rather than actually paying attention in class. In class for me is more of a asking the teacher if there's something specifically I have a problem with.
I feel it can help learn, but it can also distract a lot. There might be better ways to get about this, maybe more rules with devices.
I'd say it helped me learn more because I feel it's pretty easy to figure out like when it's acceptable to have a phone out and when it's not. And when it's not acceptable, then it doesn't very distract me.
I think it's a distraction because at times the lesson doesn't really seem as interesting as what I could be doing on my phone.
It really depends on the person who is using it. Some people have like very little willpower and will be going on like social media and other stuff, but then other people will actually want to accelerate their learning through the device by Googling stuff and by quizzing themselves over things. So really, in my opinion, it helps educate because the people who wouldn't be using it for education would be using it anyways in class. So bringing your own device just helps the people who would be wanting to educate themselves further.
I think it's both. It definitely helps me to learn, and I'm kind of explore new things when I have the time to. But it can also be a distraction, and that's just something we have to live with. And I think that just it's up to the person to manage their time correctly.
Sometimes it can be a distraction, especially if I have like a game that I want to play on my phone, like Sudoku or something. But overall, having the teacher let me have my phone out has been less of a distraction than before because I was sneaking around trying to text inside my purse before. And now I can just set it on my desk next to me.
I think that most of the time having a phone on you in class is a distraction. Most lesson plans don't usually incorporate it, and most of the time we're using it to check social media. But if the teacher's able to use the electronic as like something to help engage their students with learning, then it's more beneficial.
I definitely think it can be beneficial for students to use their phones in class, but most of the time it ends up being a distraction for students.
I think having my phone in class is a distraction because it allows me access to anything that would be more interesting at the time than learning about Algebra 2.
It can be a double-edged sword because on one hand, when you can use it to learn more about the things that you're confused about in class. But on the other hand, if you let the phone get in the way of what you're doing, you can become distracted by other things like social media and messaging friends and other things on the internet that are not helping you learn.
I would say some teachers are utilizing it more from a research standpoint. They're having the kids research out this, that, or the other. What are they instructing on to enhance the kids' knowledge? Maybe they're writing a paper, maybe they're having a discussion about it, maybe they're getting in small groups and they're looking up information and then presenting that to the rest of the class.
Well, I see it being used quite a bit in some classrooms and not at all in other classrooms. I think a lot of teachers have seen the value in the fact that, you know, we don't have a device for every student in our district. So that's a way every kid just about has a phone in their pocket, regardless of socioeconomic level. That's something that is pretty valuable to them. And so those teachers who can leverage that and say, okay, I'm going to use what they have in their pocket, I think have seen that it's been a great value. But on the other hand, there are teachers who won't buy into it. And so they're the ones who say, turn off your phone or I'm going to take it up, which to me says, I don't trust you. And so those teachers are the ones that I guess we struggle with most.
I think our teachers use BYOD to get quick feedback from students using apps like Kahoot or other quiz services. They're able to do more quicker with students using their own devices than they would with a paper and pencil quiz, or even with some low-tech options like Plickers or just the traditional pen and paper quiz.
From a technical side is the coverage and capacity of our wireless network that will utilize or allow the students to utilize that in an educational way. If the capacity isn't there to handle the load of students that bring in their own devices, then if they don't have a good experience, they're not going to be able to utilize it in a way, or if they do try to use it, they'll be frustrated. The teachers, if they can't have that as a resource and know that's a solid resource in their classroom to use instructionally, then they're not going to rely on that if it's not operating correctly or operating in a good way for them to utilize in their classroom.
Well, number one, you can't train everybody on everybody's device. So every kid that walks in the door is going to have has a device, but those devices are different. And so the teacher feels like I have to be an expert on all those devices, which is simply not true because the kid is pretty much a device expert on their own device. And so I think there's hesitation on teachers' part because they feel like they have to be an expert on those devices in order to have the children use them in the classroom. I think the other issue that we have is that teachers traditionally, in years past, have always been the keeper of the knowledge. And with a student having a device in their hand, the child is the keeper of the knowledge. And so the teacher has to let go of that and be okay with they can get the answer very quickly. I don't have to have all the answers. You can say, if somebody asks a question you don't know the answer to, which they should be asking questions you don't know the answer to, hey, Bart, use that device and find out. Tell us the answer. And in 2 minutes they can have it.
You're really asking teachers to be innovators, and you can teach people up to a certain point with that, but afterwards people have to take it on for themselves. And if they don't, then it sits where it is.
Making sure that kids are using it in the right direction and not the wrong direction. And that's a tough task for a teacher to maintain throughout the entire classroom, to make sure that everybody is utilizing it in the way that teacher originally envisioned. I think if we can, knowing the issues that we've just talked about surrounding BYOD, if we could find a way to have students, say, perhaps log in to a piece of software that is tied to that teacher in that classroom, and she set up or he has set up the resources that they're wanting that student to utilize, so it's more directed learning.
I think I would love to see, again, those teachers who aren't on board get on board. I think with our rapidly growing district, I don't see that we'll ever be one-on-one, one-to-one device. And so because of that, I think we have to embrace what we do have. We do have a device in kids' pockets. And so to kind of really encourage teachers and show them how easy it is, show them that they don't have to be an expert on those devices in order to be able to use that, and show them how valuable that quick assessment can be in engaging kids that might not ever be engaged without that technology.
So maybe you're watching a video, you're seeing a presentation in class, and instead of making that a passive experience, create a back channel on Twitter where people are able to have that conversation about what's going on. And then not only does that keep students engaged, but it allows the teacher to see the ways in which those students are engaged throughout that process. I think the more we use BYOD not to just substitute, well, it was a worksheet on paper and now it's a worksheet on a device, the more we can help students create things, the more we can help students make things with their devices, the better off we're going to be.
Just allowing students to go at their own pace on their device rather than having to all listen to a teacher at a time. They could get lessons on their phone and do them at their own pace.
Just come up with different ways to have students interact with the class using their cell phones. That way they go from being a distraction to a benefit that will help them learn better.
Being more interactive and maybe interacting with other countries and other students from other countries as you learn about things.
From what I see from users of phones in school, phones are a way to separate the population of students from each other, and they don't really allow us to come together and see each other, because while phones connect people from long distances to each other, they separate those who we are next to.
Currently, College Station ISD is spending over $200,000 a year on broadband internet services. That's nearly $17,000 a month. Now, not all of this is allocated for BYOD, but on the secondary level, where devices are more prevalent, a good 45 to 50% of it is used for BYOD. Other items that take up the broadband internet services include classroom instruction, basic network servicing, and data services. The internet is changing and shaping a new way of thinking. However, this should not generate a fear of change. Instead, it should foster excitement about a new era of learning styles. We as educators are now consumed by a digital world full of new programs or applications that allow our lives and our students' lives to be enhanced by technology. Howard Gardner describes the current youth as digital natives, students that have grown up in technology. He determines that we need to focus the current generation's mindset to be app-enabled, where technology encourages to pursue new possibilities, and not app-dependent, where technology restricts or determines our procedures, choices, and goals. We have to determine whether we will control technology or let technology control us. Our brains are adapting to an onslaught of digital data that is compounded by the volumes of information that we consume from a multitude of digital sources, such as BYOD. We are reaching cognitive overload each day by the way we multitask between televisions, video games, smartphones, tablets, and computers. This digital immersion will become a crutch if we do not learn to use technology in a proactive and positive way to develop cognitive growth instead of deterioration. Educators must not use the internet or BYOD in their classrooms unless they abide by certain guidelines to ensure success in all of our students. We have to put the value back into why we are using BYOD and use it in a way that has a growing generation become app-enabled and not app-dependent. Thank you for taking the time to watch my presentation over BYOD.